In about 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to be going on our march down Elgin Street. So we will have a chance at that time to say what this day is all about. And of course, it is about the family. It is about children. It is about the walkout that was so successful, as Camille related. And it's also a reminder that we're going to be back on September 20th for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 million person march. So.
Yes!
I want to bring up now Rob Stocky. Rob is a retired police sergeant.
My name is Rob Stocky. A lot of you, I know a lot of you, I see a lot of very familiar faces in this crowd, which is really, really nice. What I want to talk to you about is one of the things that I've done in my life is work in high-tech crime, and we've investigated child luring and the process of grooming. Thank you. The most obvious thing, grooming. One thing I want to do before I start this is something that I hope, if there's anything you remember from what I'm saying today, this is what I want you to remember. Language is important. And I hear so many people making a critical error when they speak on this particular thing, and I'm going to talk about that. When we say things like, Canada isn't really, for whatever, or this is what we do as Canadians, we allow pedophilia, or we allow homosexuality, we allow this, that is wrong. That is wrong. Our politicians are the ones doing this. We are standing here against what is happening here. We are standing against the terrible satanic movement that is happening. If you open a Bible and you go to the book of Leviticus, and if you actually look at the Good News Translation, which is the one the Catholics use, it says, a man shall not have sex with another man, the Lord hates that. That's exactly what it says in the Good News Translation, the Catholic version of the Bible. All of these things that we are seeing right now are absolutely driven by satanic ideology, and we are the ones standing up against this. So the point I'm making is, when people say we are doing this as Canadians, we are doing this, whatever it is, we are not doing this as Canadians. They are doing it. We are standing up. And why do we say that, by the way? We say that because if we use the words "we are doing this," we are diluting their culpability while accepting some of that guilt onto us. And we're not doing that. It's very important that we do not use that language. And I encourage you, when you hear people using that language, to correct them. Correct them that it is the politicians pushing this agenda on us. It is not a democratic idea. We did not vote for this. We have been locked out of our schools, as the doctor has said, while these things are going on with our children. It is not us. It is them pushing an agenda, a satanic agenda, onto us. And they must be recognized for that in the future. So, the stages of grooming. This is really important. When I was working in high-tech crime, the first alarming thing I'll tell you is that there is an incredible amount of sexual predators online. I know that sounds very obvious, but the problem that happens is, when you have this many sexual predators online, as a police agency, I'm retired, by the way. I was a policeman with Ottawa Police. What you have to do is you have to prioritize your targets. So one of the things that I came up with, which is actually used in Canada now, is a matrix, how you target these people as your highest level targets, because you can only go after so many. So you go after the highest level ones, the ones you're really going to likely get a conviction of. Now, this is back in the day when I was a police officer. I don't know what they're doing today. But the one alarming thing that we are seeing is that this sexual depravity and the pride movement that is happening right now is actually being sanctioned by our politicians. And this is why we must use that language. It is not us. It is not us as Ontarians or Saskatchewanians or Newfoundlanders. It is the politicians. It's not us as Canadians. It is the politicians. So the six stages of grooming are this, and this is why you'll see why I'm tying this together, because it's quite alarming. First is targeting the victim. Then there's the bond. Number 3 is filling a need. Number 4 is access and creating separation. Number 5 is the abuse actually begins. It's because it becomes normalized. And number 6 is maintaining control. Those are the 6 stages of grooming. So if you look at those 6 stages of grooming, and we look at them from an individual going after a child, now let's put politics behind this. We have politicians who are demonstrating leadership, empowering our education system, which I'm saying this maybe colloquially, education system. On a mass scale, they are attacking our children. When you target the victim, you target them because you size up a child's vulnerability. But think of this for a second. A child in school is taught that you can trust your teachers. So every child in school is vulnerable. And if it wasn't for the parents who are, and this guy, Camille, who's organizing movements, how many parents are going to stand up? They're kind of watching what's next door, what's happening, and I'm going to let my child go to school, I'm not going to do anything. Well, parents are standing up. Things are happening. The point is that schools are now the ones that are the molesters, the groomers, through the teachers, through the principals, through the administrators. That's what's happening. Now the bond. You gain trust. The bond is when you gain trust and you provide your target with information, something that your target is going to gain your trust. Again, another example of how teachers and principals and educators have that ability. This is no longer taking place in the shadows. This is taking place right in the open. Now filling a need. Let's talk about the trans movement for a moment. When you fill a need, what does every child, what does every person in this arena right now on Parliament Hill have? They have this little invisible sign on them that says, "Notice me, make me feel important." Everyone's got that sign, believe it or not. And what happens in the trans movement in the schools? Anybody who wants to feel important is being celebrated for engaging in depravity. So they are not achieving recognition or love or acceptance by winning something in a sport. As a matter of fact, this is why these politicians, not us, this is why these politicians are inviting men to compete against women, to destroy that institution of success. Right now, to achieve success in schools, you come out as a trans person. That's where you get your recognition. That's where the number 3 on the sexual grooming list is filling a need. That's why this is being pushed. Then access and separation, as the doctor had said, I touched on it quickly, but preventing parents. The teachers have access to our children. They remove the access from the parent by not telling the parents what day this is happening, these pride recognition days. So we're up to number 4 now. Are you seeing what I'm saying here? That right now, our school system, because of our politicians, is the number 1 groomer of our children. My daughters came home with a book one day, and in the book it said, my daughters we were having dinner together, and the book said, if you are a girl and you notice that your friend who is also a girl is dressed up nicely at school, then that means you're probably a lesbian. That's what the book said. I couldn't believe it. This is about 5 or 6, this is probably actually about 8 years ago. I was shocked. We went to the school. This is back in the time when Kathleen Wynne was the Premier of Ontario. That's when this happened. And of course, we went to the school, and I wrote Kathleen Wynne, and what happened. And by the way, thank you, Howard, for pointing this out. The architect of this is he is a doctor, Benjamin Levin, who's a Liberal appointee who went to jail for having sexual relations with his own children. He is a pedophile. There are countless pictures of Dr. Benjamin Levin and Kathleen Wynne and Justin Trudeau all over the internet at political events. Before he went to jail, obviously. But that's the kind of crowd that the satanic parliamentarians associate with. Number 5 on the sexual grooming list. This is my mom, by the way. Yes, my mom is correct. Dr. Benjamin Levin actually wrote the school curriculum under on the direction of the politicians. Kathleen Wynne pushed it. Number 5, this is where the actual abuse begins. This is where the surgeries take place. This is where this is where they maim our children. And we are the ones who are forced to pick up the pieces. Do you think, just think about this for a second. I'm gonna actually talk about, I'm a history nut. If you go into my library, my mother will tell you, I've got a library of history books. It'll rival some libraries that you've seen. And I'm a bookworm. Does anybody know who Adolf Eichmann is? Who's Adolf Eichmann?
He did experiments.
He was a Nazi. He was a Nazi in charge of the final solution. Correct. Adolf Eichmann was that. And Adolf Eichmann created what he called the Jew factory. And what this was, when the deportation of the Jews was taking place in Europe, they had taxed the Jews before leaving to the point, and it was the big joke, that when they enter through one door, they have assets, and when they leave, all of their assets are gone. And the same thing is happening in a way with our children, because when they get into school, they have their dignity. And when they get into this trans movement, they get injured, they get maimed, and this is for business purposes. And then once they are depressed, there's nothing more you can do with them. Now our government gives them MAID to exterminate them. It is not an accident that MAID and this trans movement are affecting our children. So there you go, folks. There's number 5, abuse begins. And number 6, the final one, which is the one we see the most of right now, because all the other ones we've already seen, is maintaining control. Control is maintained by pushing this agenda through the media. Nothing happens on the media without somebody paying a bill. There is no such thing anymore in mainstream or legacy media where you're receiving a message that's actually news. I'm trying to be quick. The point of the story is, when COVID happened and you were walking into a grocery store and they said, wear your masks, take your shots. Somebody was paying for that message to happen. And the same thing is happening with LGBT and the rainbow and the counterfeit rainbow, by the way. There's 6 colors, God's rainbow has 7. Maintaining control is having all of this stuff pushed in our faces 24/7 and disallowing and ridiculing us for talking about it. That's how control is being maintained. So to put all this together, this is how our children are being groomed. You now recognize and understand the stages of grooming. It is absolutely undeniable that our children are being groomed by our politicians, and the only way we are going to get out of this is by voting in a political party that actually cares. And there is one in Ontario. It's called the New Blue Party of Ontario. It is primarily Christian. It is pro-life. It is pro-marriage. It is anti-SOGI. It is anti-LGBT, not anti-LGBT, but it's not teaching our children anti-LGBT. There's no LGBT being pushed in the New Blue Party of Ontario, and it's biblical. If it's in the Bible, that's our stand on it. I hope you consider us because it's an Ontario party. It deals with education, healthcare, and policing. Big guns on your side should we get in office. Thank you very much, folks. Rob Stocky, thank you.
BlueOntario.com.
Thank you very much, Rob.